Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sanderlanche podcast. I am Joe, and with me is
Jack,
Data,
and Jamie.
And we are here talking about Elantris, chapters 4, 5, and 6, wherein Galadon shows Raoden how Elantris works. We get to learn a little bit about the gangs that comprise most of the city, and then we get an extra special treat. We find out that the Elantrians still have the ability to use magic. And then in chapter 5, we get Sarene in the court of Raoden. Hrathen shows up, makes some veiled threats, takes off. Sarene meets her uncle in court, Keen. She goes to his house, meets his kids, his wife, has some dinner, has a good time. And then in chapter 6, we get back with Hrathen, who checks out Elantris and cooks up a scheme to use the Elantrians to convert the unbelievers of Kay. So hold on to something. The Sanderlanche is about to begin.
Feed the fire, set me free in this city of dreams. Push my mind into overload. Hack the wire, smash the gene in this city of dreams. We'll be immortal in the code. Mind into overload.
So yeah, we had just a new triad, some interesting stuff. Fun fact before we get into it. This her uncle is the first character we've met with the double I, which is pronounced according to the pronunciation key as I. So his name is Kai-Ein.
well, that's not confusing at all.
Yeah,
No,
I'm just
yeah.
going to say
No.
Keen.
Keen
good with
is how I
Keen.
say it too. Yeah.
Is he
Too
basing
hot.
these pronunciations on particular cultures or something, or?
So he is bringing it. Apparently, he had like a language person and helped develop his own language. But the pronunciations of the vowels seem to be due to the fact that as we get into aeons more, it'll talk about it, and you can see the list of aeons in the back of the book. It won't. If you want to go look at what they look like, it's not going to spoil anything to see the list of aeons. But the names are kind of based. Everyone's name in Aeonic, at least, is based on an aeon, and so it's like the name is like built around the name of the aeon. And so that contributes to some of the weirdness in how things are pronounced.
Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what did you guys think of these 3 chapters?
So I really enjoyed the 4th chapter, Raoden hanging out with Galadon in Elantris. I thought the gang thing was really cool, that there's 3 gangs and they kind of each run their own area of Elantris. As far as Galadon basically saying, like, I don't know anybody who's lasted years in here, I think that's total crap. I think there's, like, especially the gang leaders, I feel like they've probably been there for a long, long time. Maybe even some of them, like, since Elantris was there, or excuse me, since Elantris changed. So even though everybody's saying, like, oh, they don't, we killed them all, I don't know. Maybe I feel like maybe that's not actually the case. So it was cool, them walking around, him showing him where all the gangs hang out, them on the buildings, and then going back to Galadon's place, seeing all the books, learning that magic is still a thing. Very interesting. I think that's going to open up a lot of possibilities for Raoden and the people in Elantris going forward. Sarene, she's just a fun person to see the perspective of, I think. So that chapter was enjoyable as well. She gets a bit of home in finding her uncle there in the court, and so that opens up a lot of stuff for her to feel more comfortable there. And then also obviously there's some background stuff with her uncle that could be interesting to be filled in, and her uncle has been there for a long time, so he kind of knows the history of what happened back when Elantris changed. So a lot of cool potential there. And then Hrathen, man, you love a zealot, right? I just want to see what this guy's gonna do. It's I hope it's exciting and interesting, because he just seems so conniving and devious. So I'm excited for that as well. Yeah, so I enjoyed all 3 of these chapters.
Cool. Yeah, it'll be interesting as we see more about the gang leaders. I know Galadon is like, yeah, people don't last long in here. I think that's one of the first things he talks about in this chapter, but who knows if he's 100% correct on that.
Yeah, these are pretty fun. I mean, obviously we're still in setup mode. We're still just, learning about how things work and the various characters. Yeah, I liked learning about the various gangs that are still in Elantris, and the gang leaders is very like zombie Mad Max in the city style, so that's kind of cool. The scene with Sarene's uncle, Kyan, oh, that's gonna take some getting used to. That was pretty cool. It did throw me. I was just like, oh god, that's a lot of characters coming hard and fast, and I'm gonna have to try and keep separate from each other because most of them are just like, this is my son, this is my other son, this is not my son, he's my stepson, and this is my other. I'm like, Jesus, slow down. Okay, all right, family tree, let's go. But once eventually, like got it all sorted. But I'm just like, all right, we've got all these people. Which of them are important? Which ones aren't? And like, presumably they all will be at some point. But yeah, it was fun. It was just like, God, I got to keep all these people straight. And it seemed like a lot of people in a very short amount of time. And then yeah, Hrathen was like, every time this guy shows up, I just keep waiting for someone to die. So like we'll see how that goes. In my head, I'm picturing him as Richard Armitage. Like, if there's your fan casting for this one.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I have no idea why that popped into my head. It just did. And like, all right, well, we're going with this now. But yeah, it's just like he's just basically just skulking around, just going, all right, let's get the lay of the land and get ready to just mess some people up. It really seems like he didn't waste any time. He's like, all right, come in, meet the king. That failed. All right, let's go in with the real plan. So yeah, I think the body count's going to mount up around this guy.
Yeah, it seemed like he was kind of expecting what happened with the king.
Yeah.
So it was just part of the plan. It's all part of the plan.
Yeah, I enjoyed these chapters as well. I think the insight into the gangs and sort of how it's all set up in the city of Elantris is pretty cool. And the little bits of, I guess, knowledge nuggets. We can bring knowledge nuggets back into this book. That's fine. Sort of who's who in the zoo and how they're all a little bit different. I thought was pretty cool. I really liked that a bit of magic is going to follow them too. So I think we're all expecting a little bit of magic somewhere, but not quite sure where it's going to pop up. I really enjoyed the interaction for Sarene and her family. I thought that was a bit of fun. It's nice to have a family that actually likes each other in this book rather than having families trying to kill everybody and just being awful people. Yeah, I really enjoyed that interaction as well. And yeah, Hrathen, this guy, he's going to bring in some really messed up stuff, I think. But good to read sort of what he's up to and his sidekick as well. He really has some issues he needs to work out. But yeah, I think it's good. It's nice to sort of set up a little bit more, get a little bit more information on what we built on last week. It's still very much, I guess, in the setup phase. But I think it's all going to happen really quickly, given that this is like a standalone story. We're not going to be building to something that's really, really huge. So I'm looking forward to seeing it all kick off very soon.
Yeah, that Diloff or Deloff, however you say his name, he needs some therapy or something.
Yeah, he's got issues. There's so many names like that they're like titles and then names and then all this sort of stuff. I'm like, I don't even know what your real name is anymore. Diloff. Okay.
Yeah, I'm having to keep extensive notes to keep up with all of it. It's a lot.
Just pick one.
Yeah, now that you don't have to write down any epigraphs, you got new note taking opportunities.
Yeah, it's a
roll
lot.
Call.
Yeah, even with all the names, it's actually a lot less than what I was doing before. Because before, when we would read a section, it would take me 2 or 3 pages front and back because I was writing out the epigraphs. This was only one front page, so easier for sure.
Just wait till we get to Stormlight. It's epic. There'll be lots of people and things happening.
Hopefully, I'll be dead long before we get to Stormlight.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Okay, before we get into it, I was gonna say, since we're starting with Raoden's chapter, I thought I would mention this thing from the annotations. I don't know if you guys are getting used to Colo yet. We talked about it last time, but what he says is his editor and him agreed on almost every edit or change made to Elantris except for how often the word Colo was used. So
I'm guessing Brandon was pro Colo.
Yeah.
His editor was con Colo.
yeah, that's exactly. Brandon says that because he's doing with like the 3 main characters or the 3 main viewpoint characters, I should say. Like, he knew that Galadon's not going to have like this viewpoint when we're doing triads, right? So he's like, I have to get his characterization across in the dialogue. And so I wanted him to have like a very specific sound and attitude to his speech. And part of that was like, he wanted it to have a chatty feel. He says the doula habit of calling everyone friend comes from this idea that they're chatty, and that also ending a statement. He says linguistically, questions are less antagonistic than statements. So adding this question at the end of everything he says is like specifically designed to make the language feel like not antagonistic. And he says that there's several real languages, such as Korean, which is one that he knows, that do a similar thing. Even Canadians get made fun of for being like "a" at the end of sentences or whatever. And so he says it's kind of the same concept. Those are trying to sound like softer by being interrogative at the end.
That's one of the criticisms of the Australian accent, like how we always just end everything in a question mark because we're too insecure to say it as a statement.
Yeah.
It happens all the time.
Interesting.
Okay,
I don't know
write
that I've heard that
down.
before. Joe's like, next time I'm impersonating an Australian, I'm going to make sure I do that.
Did
Yeah,
that?
our
Put a
reflections
question
at
mark.
Early
Yeah, they call it upspeak.
Oh, yeah. I've heard the term.
I thought like Colo was him checking his understanding. So I was getting really annoyed because I was like, how dumb do you think this guy is? At the end of every statement, it's like, do you understand? Do you understand? I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna hit him.
Yeah. It's like a Jack Sparrow savvy thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like that bloody
I feel
owl
more
from
comfortable
Legend of
with
Zelda.
it. Just-
Oh, my gosh.
Would you like me to repeat that, Colo?
Oh, gosh. And then you accidentally say yes, and then you hate yourself for the rest of your life. But Brandon's editor
Colo.
found the Colos too distracting, and also felt that in connection with Sule, people would get the two words confused and start having trouble understanding the sentences. So the editor kept cutting them out, and Brandon kept putting them back in. And he's like, in each successive draft, he'd try to cut more, and I'd try to keep a hold of as many as possible. And it says, I was half tempted to throw a Colo into the draft of Mistborn just to amuse him. And so
if I was the editor, I would quit.
Apparently the like compromise is that instead of having like the end of the sentence be like comma Colo question mark, the sentences are now it's like it's hot today period, and then Colo question mark is a different sentence, and somehow that made the thing easier to swallow, I guess, for his editor.
Okay.
Every Colo. What would that do to the word count?
Interesting question. I guess it depends on how much Galadon talks overall.
Oh no, we've lost like a whole fifth of the book.
He says they ended up cutting between a third and a half of the uses of the word overall.
Okay.
So Brandon did the put double what you want in, so that
Exactly.
half taken out, you get what you want.
Oh man.
There we go. Perfect.
So yeah.
Oh yeah, that would be a lot of Colo.
As we get into Raoden's chapter, I thought that would be a fun detail to mention. I like this chapter also starts just like the last one didn't start with, but when he shows up in Elantris, there's the woman screaming, and here we're still like, yep, woman keeps screaming, but this is a different woman this time, so it's okay. I don't know why that makes it okay, but
I was going to say, is it?
it's not okay.
Everyone's screaming. It's a shit place.
But someone new has been thrown into Elantris, a woman who he says, it says her face bespoke hard-won wisdom and courage, which made watching her even all the more difficult now that she's tossed in here and not happy and kind of breaking down, basically. Because she screams and screams and scratches at the slime on the doors and eventually just kind of like gives up. It's sad. And we start to figure out the system here for who gets to attack you when you show up to town. Basically, if you step one way when you come in the door, one gang gets you. If you step another way, another gang gets you. And the third way, the third one. So he says Raoden made a bad choice. He stepped, I guess, left. What was it? No, he stepped right. Galadon says if he turned right, if she had turned right like you, she would have been at the dubious mercy of Sheor's men. If she's
just like people getting tossed into Arkham City. You turn one way, you've got the Penguins gang. You turn another way, you got Two Faces gang, and then the final way, that's the Joker. You don't want to go there.
Yeah, nobody wants to go there. That's a good point. It is reminiscent.
It's like the city was like, all right, we're just tossing everyone in there and just forgetting about them.
And then Bruce Wayne ends up in there.
That's Raoden.
Yeah, Raoden is totally Bruce Wayne. That works.
Yeah, sure.
Except he's, a zombie also.
Mm.
But yeah, it's like Karata is the direction that she did turn. Galen's like, Karata's men rarely hurt you. They just take your stuff. Better be hungry than spend the next few years with a broken arm. He's like, wait, next few years? I thought you said, we live forever, right? He's like, yeah, we assume. If you can find an Elantrian who stays sane until forever, then I guess we'll be able to prove or disprove that theory. And he tells them that people last like a year in Elantris, maybe 2, before they just lose it. The cuts and bruises and stubbed toes pile up, and a person can only take so much before they're just lying there mumbling or screaming. Galadon himself has only been here a few months. And they talk about the hunger a little more. He's like, why do they even want like that shit food? But it's like there's one loaf of bread and a few crappy vegetables. And he's like, oh, you just wait when you get hungry enough. And Galadon's like, geez, are you not scared of anything? He's like, actually, pretty much everything here terrifies me. I'm just good at not showing it. So we got 3 gangs ruling 3 sections of the city, much like Arkham City. Elantris is now Arkham City in my brain. You've ruined it forever. The market section is ruled by Sheor. That's going to be the Joker.
Sure.
Because Sheor's men are crazy, and he's like, yeah, you remember when they were too busy licking the slime off your offerings to introduce themselves?
Ugh.
Karata, she's the one who very politely relieved that woman of her food today. She runs which section? The palace. And then Andin, or maybe it's Aindin, or Aindin, I'm going to say Andin, spends his time in the university. And he's like, oh, really? So he's like a smart guy? He's like, no, he just realized that a lot of the older texts were written on vellum, and you can eat that.
I will gain this book's knowledge by eating the book.
And Raoden's like, Stomi, that's atrocious. The old scrolls, there's supposed to be countless original works in there. They're priceless. Galen's like, yeah, well, what good is literature when your stomach hurts so much your eyes water? And he's like, 2-century-old lambskin can't possibly taste very good. And he's like, well, it's better than slime. So they ran out of scrolls a few months back and tried boiling books, but that didn't work very well. I'm trying to decide if books would be edible. I guess. Maybe.
I mean, it's probably worse
paper.
things you could eat.
Yeah, it's not good on the digestive system, that's for sure.
No.
I mean, vellum is just animal like skin, so that I feel like that's not much better.
So pork rinds is what you're saying. Okay. Leather, yeah, that's less appetizing. And
There's no good outcome here
no,
for anyone's food choices.
I guess if you're hungry enough, and Raoden's like, I'm surprised they didn't try eating each other. And he's like, oh no, it's been tried. But apparently something happens to us, and it makes us taste really bad when you turn into an Elantrian. It's so violently bitter that no one can keep it down.
You taste like the buffet at Sizzler.
I guess really, if you're going to make all these people like so hungry they'll do anything to eat, you kind of have to write that they taste bad, or there's no explanation for that why they haven't all murdered each other.
Yeah.
True.
Plus, it's not really a logical leap. It's like, all right, you guys now look like you got covered in blotches and everything else like that. Yeah, okay, there's going to be some sort of rot in you that's going to make you taste foul.
I've always wondered about that with like zombie stuff too. It's like the zombies don't eat each other, but they still have flesh and like organs and stuff.
There's no friendly fire in zombie land.
Yeah.
And then we have one of those jumps that Joe finds jarring. I think you get used to them as we go.
Yeah, but is it something I should have to get used to?
Well, and I mean, really, I guess in a different world where the chapters were written together, it would be like this is where you would jump to Sarene for a minute, and then you jump back, and it would be the next part. But he separated them out, so you get everybody's story separately. So, but Raoden makes a good point here. He's thinking, he's like, 10 years is not long enough for like a city to start crumbling, and the wood and bricks are decaying and stuff. It's like the city itself is somehow dying and rotting. And it's impossible to keep clean of the slime. Everything is covered with slime.
Ectoplasmic goo, huh?
Save me some.
Yeah.
It's like, where is this shit coming from?
Yeah, do we think like the very city itself was forged by like a shard, and that shard is dying, so its body's like decaying?
Ew.
Like the like Elantris is the shard's body, and then like
Ooh.
it's like sliming up, and everyone who's touched by the shard's powers like bound to rot as well.
Now you got me
subsumed by the goo.
Got me picturing the
Yeah.
entire city like getting up and walking away like a kaiju or like a castle
Yeah,
bat castle, whatever
Right.
it was called.
lion turtle, sure.
Mhm.
Like the entire city just turns into goo, and all of a sudden a tidal wave of the shit just floods K.
Oh, that's a gross
Ew.
picture. Okay.
Sounds delicious.
Like,
got peanut butter for
preaching
that
in the
jelly.
street. Hrathen's preaching in the street, and then like has that cartoon thing where the shadow falls and his congregation runs away. He turns around, just looks up, and is like, "Oh no!"
I knew this was coming.
Ah, shoot, Dareth.
It's like when all the slime falls on the guy at the end of Ghostbusters. He just looks up and everyone's run away, and he's like, "Oh no."
Like Leela with the oil just puts her hoodie on and zips it up so you can just
Yep.
see her eye.
Yep. Yeah, you stay away from those puffin twins.
Put your hand in your buttocks. That's nature's pocket.
Make sure he
Don't
doesn't
let him
pick
pick
you.
he doesn't pick your pocket.
Yeah, don't let him pick your pocket.
Oh gosh. So we find out that the people in Elantris that are just so far gone that you can't even interact with them anymore. Galadon calls them the Hoed or Hode. I don't know how you say that. Hode. Their minds are lost and their lives filled with continual, unrelenting torture. So that's nice. And we hear some of them
that's what you
talking.
want.
Domi, domi, domi. So beautiful. Once so very beautiful. Stop, stop, stop. Make it stop. So yeah, nice folk.
I imagine the real estate there's pretty cheap.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, I guess it depends.
Is it the neighborhood you want to buy in?
Well, it gets you into the market.
It's a very select thing though, because you got to become an Elantrian before they let you in. So
Yeah, true.
that's
An
a high
exclusive
price to pay.
slum?
Yeah, a very exclusive slum covered in slime, a slime slum. And he's thinking about his friends. So he says that Keen is a buddy of his, and he's like, I wonder if they'll keep the group together. What about my best friend Lukel? I barely got to know his new wife, and I'm not gonna meet my own wife.
Which, foreshadow.
Yeah.
Was she really as witty and interesting as she seemed? So it's kind of fun seeing his perspective that he also kind of liked her.
Point to yes.
You think she's witty? You don't know how witty she seemed,
Sure.
though. We never saw their conversations. So
That's true. But she seems witty. She certainly got one over on her little cousin. When she's like, I remember somebody saying I was too tall in my.
Take that, 12-year-old.
yeah, exactly.
Also, I'm going to admit that it wasn't until we were just recording this right now that we got to, my best friend Lukel. I'm like, wait a minute, that name's familiar. Oh, that's the stepson.
Yep, we know that guy.
Yep.
I did not put that together until
BFFs
just now.
Forever.
Well, yeah, because we see it here, and it's just one name among a million that we've never
Right.
actually met, and then
Yeah.
we get it later. I like he's like, yeah, I guess she'll never come. She's gonna hear that I'm dead and never even leave Teod.
Mm,
He doesn't know she came early to surprise him.
right. I wonder if Lukel's gonna surely he's gonna be like, so I actually knew the guy you're supposed to marry. He was a cool guy.
Also-
Maybe.
So did the uncle, apparently, because he's mentioned here as well. Is like he's holding the group together. It's like, fuck, everyone just knew him.
Yep. Well, he was the
Kind of
prince.
a bit weird now that it's a bit weird now that Lukel didn't mention it because there was clearly an opening there.
Yeah, Keen as well, but I guess they got some kind of secret underground thing going, like
Yeah.
Ellen's like philosophizing group, except probably
Useful.
valuable as opposed to his group, which was terrible.
Oh, speaking of, after we talked last time, and Dak was like, because he talks about how Hrathen's gonna have to send all those priests back, and we're like, well, how far away is that? And I had to go and look, and if you look at the maps at the beginning, Teod, which we know is 5 days away, is actually further away on this map than Fjorden is.
Oh, okay.
If you go back and look at that map, the one that had Naz's like note on it, you can see Fjorden has taken over like this entire continent except for the little piece that's Erelon. And then Teod is up in the north a little bit.
Yeah, I guess.
So anyway,
That helps that the Fjorden is also just like friggin' huge.
yeah. Well, and I mean, in the letter that Viking Pope sent was like, we've taken all the lands except for these now. But that didn't really like jog in my brain until you look at the map and it's like, oh, they really do have like all these countries under them, including Duladel, where Galadon's from. So
Dunedain. It's always going to be Dunedain now.
Yep. Anyway, so he's like, yeah, she's going to stay in Teod and find another husband, I guess. No one knew what had caused the Riad. There were those that theorized, most of them Durathi priests, that the fall of Elantris had been caused by God. So the Elantrians living as gods set themselves up. You just can't let that happen.
God under the rocks struck them down. Yay!
Yep. It had come with a tempest, that much even Raoden remembered. The earth itself shattered, an enormous chasm appearing in the south of Arelon. You can actually see that if you look at the map that's just Arelon. There's like a big like Grand Canyon looking thing in the south.
I like how it says that even Raoden remembered. Like, this was only 10 years ago. He wasn't like 5. I don't understand how old he's supposed to be, but surely,
I'm not sure, yeah.
Surely he would have been like a teen when it happened.
You would think, right? Like he's got to be in like his 20s at the
right.
youngest at this point.
Yeah.
Well,
wasn't he like 22 or something? Yeah. Like he was younger than her, I think, but for some reason in my head he was about 22 now. She was 25.
Sounds
well
about
past
right.
her prime, apparently.
Yeah, totally.
Even though,
still.
Even so, if there was a great earthquake when I was 12, I'm pretty sure I would remember that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I wouldn't be like, man, I'm surprised I remember that. I'd be like, no, that was horrible. I remember everything.
The big one.
Yeah, our city caught fire when we were 14. Like, we both remember that.
Yeah.
I bet.
Oh, yeah.
Jamie's like, I do remember that, actually.
Yeah, she's like, oh, I'm surprised I remember that.
It took me a while it took me a while to realize that you were talking about something that actually happened, not hypothetically something.
No, I didn't make that up.
No, I remember. I was here when it happened.
I was here. I do remember.
I remember evacuating. It's fine.
So yes, Raoden, maybe he's younger than we think. Who knows? He was like, I was 5 back then. I'm 15 now. I'm not past my prime. I'm right in my prime marrying years. Oh gosh. But he takes it as, it's like this, everything should not be crumbling in just 10 years. The filth shouldn't be piling up this quickly. Not so few people here. It's like Elantris is intent on dying. A city committing suicide.
Yeah. It's like this slime is ash or something.
That is a weird parallel, yeah.
Yeah,
the magic
is
dying.
rain from the sky.
Oh, what if we get into like the next Raoden chapter and it's like Galadon's like, oh, here comes the slime rain.
Uh-oh.
I would be like, wait a second. Does it always just rain weird shit in these books?
It's like only in Elantris though. Like people outside never see the slime rain.
In Stormlight, it rains puppies.
I will
that would be nice.
Well, the word storm is right there in Stormlight. So.
As long as they land safely.
Yeah, right. That would be messed up. If,
It's just dead puppies falling from the sky.
Well, it's like the fourth Dresden Files book, yeah, where it's like frogs are raining down, and at first it's just like gentle. He's like, oh hey, look, let's take a look at this frog, and then it gets kind of messed up, and he's trying to drive, and they're like splattering on his windshield, and
that's actually happened though. I think that happened in LA.
Ugh.
There was a tornado or something that was a bit further inland. It picked up a whole bunch of frogs off a pond, and then they just flew through the sky, and then they all just landed in a. I think it was LA. I could be wrong. But yeah,
I have heard about that happening.
Frog rain for like days.
It's messed up.
Oh yeah.
Messed up. So anyway, Galadon is taking Raoden to the market next. He's like, yeah, merchants used to come to sell their exotic goods to the Elantrians. A man could buy like anything here. They didn't give everything away for free. Colo.
Yeah, that's just where we get the shivs.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because he says Colo at the end, but it's like they didn't give everything away for free. Colo. It sounds like sexual, like they didn't give it all away. Colo.
Wink.
Yeah, now I'm replacing that with like a wink and a nudge.
Yep.
Yeah, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Oh.
And Raoden says, can we get closer? And Galen's like, well, you can if you want. I'm not going in there. Sheor's men are fond of chasing people. It's probably one of the few pleasures they have left. And he's like, okay, well, tell me about Sheor. And Galadon's like, well, in a place like this, you look for a leader, someone to ward off the chaos and make you feel like a society for a little bit. Sheor likes controlling people. And for some reason, the most wild and morally corrupt Elantrians find their way to him. And Raoden's like, well, if they're so uncontrollable, then why is there even like an agreement? Why is anyone following this agreement? And Galadon's like, well, because the other gangs are also big, and no one wants to like have a fight where you never recover from any of the wounds. So, yeah, that would suck.
So they don't want to have an Anchorman style fight because they won't recover from like a cut off arm or.
And they won't die from it either. So
yeah, they're just hanging out.
So like that one guy from Anchorman who's just like, oh, not again.
That one guy being Luke Wilson? Yes.
Yeah, that guy.
I killed a guy with a trident. Yeah, we saw that.
Yeah, Brick killed a guy. Yeah, I've been meaning to talk to you about that, Brick. You may want to go to a friend's house or lie low because you're probably wanted for murder.
It really got out of hand.
So then they go see the university where Karata hangs out. Oh, no, that's where Andon hangs out. I'm sorry. The palace and the university border each other, and that's Karata and Andon's stomping grounds.
I don't know if you guys, I know I've talked about the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt before, but anytime Karata's name came up, I just kept thinking, karate, which is something that they have in the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. So you should definitely watch it. It's worth a watch.
I saw the first episode. I was kind of like, There's a spire that he's like a really tall structure. It's like, yeah, that's supposed to be the very center of Elantris. Once you could climb the stairs winding around it and look over the whole city. Nowadays, I would not trust it. I mean, if it's covered in slime, yeah, you probably don't want to climb up like some open air stairs.
Yeah. Plus, even if you climbed up real slow, I feel like it wouldn't be good for your body if it doesn't like recover stamina well.
Yeah.
For you to do that.
Plus, there's also the fact that all the other spires have fallen down, so that one could fall at any moment, and then enjoy feeling that pain for the rest of your life.
Right. Apparently, Karata is more selective. She does not often let new members into her gang, and she's extremely territorial. Sheor's men might chase you for a while if you wander onto his turf, but only if they feel like it. Karata does not allow intruders. But if you leave her alone, she leaves you alone, so it works out. And apparently, Karata is not a fan of being in Elantris, more so than the others, because she keeps trying to escape. And if you get caught 4 times, the priests just burn you. Nice priests.
Well, you can't have the dead just wandering around.
No, yeah, you don't want that.
This isn't Final Fantasy X, people. The dead can't just wander around and marry our women, okay?
Hey, if it's gonna be Orin, then I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I guess he was pretty cool.
Yeah, he's the best. And she keeps trying to break into the palace, and Raoden's like, well, what does she want in the palace? And Galadon's like, I don't know. She doesn't tell me. We're not friends. We don't hang out. Most people think she wants to assassinate the king, and Raoden's like, why? She's like, I don't know. Revenge, discord, bloodlust, whatever.
Bloodlust. she definitely sounds like the bloodlust type if she like kindly removes people's food from them without hurting them.
Yeah, but don't go in her territory, or she'll get you.
I mean, this whole thing says a hell of a lot about her as it is, because it says, oh yeah, she just breaks out of Elantris, goes to the palace in K, and like people on the outside don't know about the Elantrian's injury thing, so she like tries to break into the palace. Presumably, she gets the shit kicked out of her, and she's living with that every time she comes back into Elantris.
That's a good point.
She's hardcore.
Yeah, which is another reason I think maybe not all the gang leaders, but maybe 1 or 2 of them have been Elantrians longer, and maybe there's some and we see Galadon practices magic, so at the end of the chapter, so maybe some way they're using magic to keep themselves kind of more sturdy.
Sure that they're casting like iron skin or mage armor.
Skin. Yeah, mage armor. Maybe they got some sweet magic missile action going on. Eldritch blast,
But our third gang leader, Andon, the one who hangs out in the university and eats the books, He claims to have been a baron before being thrown in to Elantris, and he's trying to establish himself as monarch of Elantris. And is very annoyed that Karada has the palace, so is making plans for attacking Kay. And he's like, wait, what? Like, yeah, he's not serious, but he's really good at propaganda, and says that he can free Elantris, so people kind of want to listen. And Raoden's like, if he was a baron, I probably knew him, but not by that name. Must have changed his name. Then they find the one well in the city. It's like, oh yeah, indoor plumbing, Sule. Courtesy of Aeon Door magic. Wells were not necessary, but this one is like maybe for religious ceremonies or something. I don't know, whatever. And I guess it says the water is gathered from the river, so I don't know if it's like a well so much as like a hole down to the river under the city.
I mean, that's a well. You put a bucket down in there, you draw it out.
Yeah. And then they see a Seon meandering about, occasionally flying in circles. And it says it was far too distant for him to make out the Aeon at its center. But apparently the Seons wander around, because when a Seon's master gets taken by the Shroud, the Seon is driven mad.
Yeah. So very interesting, but sad.
Yeah, so he's very sad about his own Seon, Ian. He's like, oh, he must be out there just crazy now. I love that guy. And then Galadon says, it's going to rain soon, and we should get inside. You don't want to spend the next few days with damp clothing, and you can't really make a fire here, because all the wood is wet or rotten and won't burn. And he's like, so where do we go? And Galadon's like, whatever. Just you pick a random house. There's probably nobody there. I guess it's hard to remember. This is a very big city, and there's not that many people in it at this point. And Raoden is like, hey, but where do you live, Galadon? And Galadon's like, in Duladel? No, more recently than that. He's like, okay, fine, I'll show you where I live. And they get there, and Raoden's like, books! And Galadon's like, damn it, I'm never going to get rid of you now. So Galadon has found, like, an old, what looked kind of like a wine cellar, but looks like it was actually somebody's study or something. There were Aeons, the mystical ancient characters behind the Aeonic language, painted all over the walls, and shelves of books. And Raoden's like, but wait, maybe these books could teach us about the Aeons. Did you ever think of that? The magic of Elantris? They said before the Riad, Elantrians could create powerful magic just by drawing these Aeons. And Galen's like, oh, what, like this? And he reaches up and draws like a glowy white line with his finger in midair and draws like a symbol and just grins at him as like the symbol hangs there in the air glowing, and that's the end of the chapter.
So he knows how to make alchemy circles. Cool.
Is that what they do in Full Metal Alchemist? They draw in the air?
No, they don't draw in the air. They usually draw on the ground.
Okay.
Or if you get touched by like the crazy transmutation afterlife creatures, then you're imbued with the power to know how to make a circle with your body. Yeah. And then you can do transmutation without a circle.
Show me on the doll where the creatures touched you.
They took his arm and his leg and his brother's whole body, so that's where they touched him.
All right, because his brother's in a metal body in that show. I've never actually seen it. I've just seen like stuff about it. Right. Okay. So we cut to Sarene, and she's in the king's throne room, and she's like, where'd that guy come from? And we see the Giorn, our friend Hrathen, hanging out in the throne room, wearing his blood red armor and a crimson cloak. And she's like, you know what? The costume is meant to impress, and it's kind of working for him. It's like, I'm kind of impressed by it. But she says that it's mostly for show. Even in Fjordan's martial society, few people could walk as easily as this Giorn while wearing full plate armor. So the metal's probably super thin and light. So does that make you think less of him after last episode where we're like, dude, he's just walking around in this blood red plate armor, and now we find out it's like, oh, it's not really that great of an armor.
I mean, they say that.
Maybe still looks cool.
Viking God will probably just imbue it with power or some shit.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, maybe. J-Death.
I did think maybe he does try to hide that the armor's not like as good as it's made out to be, because later D-Loft tries to help him take it off. He's like, no, don't worry about it.
Yep, he does. I wondered if you'd pick up on the little. I don't think I ever noticed that before until we read it this time, and I was like, oh, this totally goes with what she was saying earlier. Kind of, that's cool. And her Seon is like, well, why are you surprised? Like, you knew that the Drethi, there was a church here. And she's like, that is a full Giorn. There are only 20 of them in the entire Fjordal Empire. This is a big deal. Most places do not warrant a visit from one of the high priests. And so she's like, let's get closer. But she didn't need to worry about that because he just booms out. It's like, King Iadon, I, Gjorn Hrathen, bring you a message. Blah, blah, blah. And Iadon's like, yeah, what does he want? And we already have a treaty, a trade treaty. Like, well, what more do you want from me? And Hrathen's like, well, he fears for the souls of your people. He's like, all right, well, let him convert them. Priests are allowed to do what they want here. And he's like, no, your people need a sign. Bryn thinks that maybe you should convert to Shu Dereth. And Iadon's like, jeez. Like, it says he doesn't even bother to mask his annoyance. It's like, I already believe in Shu Korath. We serve the same god. It's like, no, Shu Dereth is the only true form of Shu Keseg. So I'm sure that this makes a lot of sense to everyone.
I guess like the confusing part to me is if he said no, Shu Dereth is the only true god, then I wouldn't be as confused. But then he's saying Shu Dereth is a form of Shu Keseg, so it's like, you're not even serving Shu Keseg, you're serving a form of Shu Keseg. Then how do you feel about Shu Keseg? Like, I'm so confused.
So yeah, Shu Keseg is the original religion founded by a guy, and I think he'll talk about it later. But it's basically like two offshoots of this are the current large religions in the world. You got Shu Dereth, which the Fjordans follow, and Shu Korath, which is centered on Teod. I think that's their home, the home base of that one. But the Erlons, the religious ones, tend to follow Shu Korath, I believe. And the Fjordans call their god Jadeth, as we found out last time. The Shu Korath call their god Domi, although I believe there's an original name before Domi, and when the people came to Erelon and the Aeonic language started based on the Aeons, they used the Aeon for, I think it's love, Aeon Omi, and made their god's name, like changed their god's name to be based on that. So anyway, fun religious background that they're actually going to get into later, but it's probably helpful to know. So yeah, it's like Iadon's like, no, we follow the same god. I'm already a member of the religion. Why are you bothering me with any of this? Go convert someone who doesn't believe. And Hrathen's like, you shouldn't dismiss this so casually. And the king's like, dude, do we really need to do this? No one cares about you or your stupid country that hasn't had any real influence in 300 years. Just go away. And Hrathen's like, nope, we're super powerful. It's like, oh yeah, well, where's your big empire? Where's your armies, huh? Maybe someday you guys will realize your empire collapsed 300 years ago. Off with you. And Sarene's like, wow, he must really be dumb, huh? It's like, how does he not know? Like, how are you king of a country and the only one left on this continent not under the like direction of these of the Fjordans and not realize what's going on?
I mean, it also probably would have helped if Hrathen had actually said the details of, I've got a 3-month plan for you. Maybe that might have helped some things, but no.
Well, you probably don't want to warn them. It's like, do what I say or an invasion is coming in 3 months, and give them 3 months to prepare for an invasion.
Yeah, but he was very vague. It was like, you should convert. I don't see the point. Okay. Like, nothing at all.
Maybe you should see the point. Oh yeah, no, you're right. There's not much. I think he really didn't want the king to convert. I feel like this is just, he had to make a show of it, and then he can go on with his actual plan.
Yeah, true. That was also what I thought. Like, oh well, I tried. You didn't.
Now I can overthrow him, and no one can say I didn't give him a fair shot. And Sarene is actually excited about this. She's like, oh, well, now you don't have to worry about me causing unrest among the nobility here, Ash. I got something much more fun to play with. Why would I bother my time with a bunch of incompetent would-be nobles when I can match wits with a Gjorn? It's like, if Iadon doesn't watch him, and it doesn't sound like he will, this guy will basically convert the city out from underneath him. So then my marriage to have an ally against them won't really help because they will be under their control. So Ash is like, so you're going to help Iadon? She's like, well, he's my king. Despite your opinion that he's insufferable? It's like, well, anything's better than feudal rule. So, and she finally concludes, like, maybe I've decided I can't really work with Iadon. Maybe we can just ignore each other and be happy that way. Which is when the king starts screaming, like, what in the name of burning Domi are you doing back in my court, girl? She's like, what? Don't you understand that women aren't to come to my court unless they're invited. It's like, oh, no one told me. And she's very intentionally trying to sound extremely stupid. And he's muttering. She's like, I just wanted to see the paintings. And acts like she's about to cry. And he's like, no, shut up. And starts ignoring her again as she looks at the paintings.
He actually does the talk to the hand.
It's like, I don't want to waste any more of my time with this conversation because you're clearly an idiot, girl. So we're just going to be done. And I like the whole thing where Ash snorts. And she's like, yeah, how do you Seons manage to make those noises? You don't even have a nose. How can you snort? And he's like, years of practice. And she's just like, the king expects women. The king expects women to be foolish. So I will manipulate him by giving him exactly what he expects to see. It'll be great. And that's when somebody calls, not even her name. Somebody goes, Eni? And she's like, who is this guy? And why does he think he knows me? Who is this lunatic? And what does he want with me is what she says.
That's when Uncle Hagrid shows up.
Yeah, I guess.
It's David Harbour.
And he scoops her into a hug, and he's like, you've changed. Like, when I last saw you, you were only knee-high. And he's like, well, maybe you weren't ever actually knee-high, but not taller than waist, certainly. And she finally realizes that this is her uncle, Hunky K, as she calls him. But without the beard, she didn't recognize him. Apparently, Erlon nobles don't wear beards. And he's like, come on, you got to meet my wife. And she's like, wait, wife? You're married? I'm shocked, even though I haven't seen you in 10 years, and clearly lots of things have changed. Her uncle had been a sworn bachelor and a confirmed rascal.
The wascally wabbit.
He's like, I guess this is her father's brother. And he's like, how's your father doing? Acting properly regal, I assume? And apparently she didn't realize that there seems to have been some sort of falling out between her uncle and her dad. She just has always believed her dad's story that he went far away on a voyage and settled down somewhere. And he's like, okay, if you're as smart of a woman as you were a girl, then you should have been able to figure out that was BS at this point. And she's like, but why? I mean, you could have you're just like a 5-day trip from home. You never came to visit. And he's like, stories for another time. Come meet my wife. The monster of a woman who managed to capture your uncle. I like this guy, and I agree with Jamie that I really like the family dynamic that we find they have going on here. But let's see, there's an interesting part in the annotations about this. Let me find it here. He says, I've gotten some grief from readers regarding Keen's family. Some think that the family as a whole feels too modern. And it is an anachronism that, to an extent, I will admit to. One of the quirks about the fantasy genre is how it generally prefers to deal with ancient governments, technologies, and societies without making its characters actually conform to ancient personality patterns. In other words, most fantasy main characters are people who, if dusted off a bit and given a short history lesson, could fit in quite well in the modern world. And he says, I'll be honest, I prefer the genre this way. I don't read fantasy because I want a history lesson. Though learning things is nice. I read it for the characters, and I want them to be characters I want to like the characters I get to know. So basically, maybe this modern sort of family dynamic is very modern and wouldn't have existed in like a society of this level of technology in our past. But he likes it. So so that the characters are more likable, we're gonna go ahead and use this. And he says, my in-world explanation is just because our world placed a certain kind of cultural development alongside a certain level of technological development doesn't mean it has to be that way.
Yeah, that's fair. It's fantasy. You can just make this shit up. It's like,
right?
It's kind of the point of the genre. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I didn't question it at all. I was just like, okay, cool. You have stepchildren. That's fair.
Yeah. And I mean, for us, it's like this is the sort of family dynamic that you've seen lots of other places. So you buy into it easily enough. I guess if you're a real stickler, then maybe you're like, no, this is not how families worked back then, but whatever. It never bothered me either. So I just going back to what we got. So he has a big mansion, and she remembers him being a successful merchant of some sort with always bringing exotic gifts and clothing. The younger son of a king and a very successful businessman. I like a young girl calls out, father's home. And he's like, yes, father's home. And no, I didn't bring you anything. I've only been gone a few minutes. And it's a little girl about 10 years old, it says, with a pink dress tied with a white ribbon. And she's like, I don't care what you did or didn't bring me. I just want to eat. And a little boy that looks almost identical to her says, when do you not want to eat, Casey? And so these are her cousins, Casey and Daorn. And then a new guy walks in and says something snarky, and here is Lucal, his wife Deora's son from her previous marriage, so his stepson. And he's like, not that that makes me any less his son. You can't escape responsibility for me that easily. And Jala, his Lucal's new wife, they were married last month, it says. And she goes, you're Fjordal? And Jala says, Sfordish. And Serene's thinking, well, Svorden is basically just a Fjordal province at this point. Which, if you go back and look at that map we were talking about, you can see Svorden up in the top right of the Fjordal section.
Every time I see Svordish, I think swordfish.
Yep, absolutely. Now I want to watch the movie Swordfish.
It makes me think of Svalbard, which is in Dungeons and Dragons.
Svalbard's a real place.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Svalbard's a real place. It's off in Norway. That's in his Dark Materials. That's where the armored bears live. And then I looked it up when I was a kid, and it's like, oh, it's actually a real island that has a polar bear sanctuary.
Yeah, that's where the global seed vault is.
Maybe it's Svalborg, not Svalbard.
I think Svalborg is what you're thinking of in D&D.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's where they keep all the seeds in case of disaster to the world. But apparently they met at the Svordish University. So even though Fjorden and Erlon don't get along well, you could send your kids to university in Svorden. Everyone's cool.
Yeah, it's like Durmstrang in Harry Potter.
And they she says congratulations. Nice to know I'm not the only newlywed in the room. And is unable to keep the bitterness out of her voice. And her uncle's like, yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't want to bring it up, but I'm sorry about what happened.
Yeah.
But he knows Raoden, and he's like, if it helps, he was one of the best men I've ever known. And if you knew more about Eroline politics, you would know that I don't say that lightly about a member of Iadon's court. And they're all kind of sad for a minute. Because you remember, we find out Lucal is his best friend, so probably sucks for him too. And the little girl's like, yeah, whatever, dead princess, food. Let's food.
How tactful.
Yeah, right? She's 10. What are you going to do? And Keen is apparently the cook, and Sarene is amazed. And it's like, oh no, this guy's traveled all over the world and brought back recipes from everywhere. He's baking some Jindo food tonight, which on the map, Jindo is just below Duladel, in case. See, this is the kind of thing we were talking about last time, where I like having the maps and being able to be like, oh, hey, look, see, yeah, that's right there. I know what they're talking about.
Yeah, it's always helpful.
And the little boy's like, Jindo food's too spicy. And then we found out there's another, Lucal's full brother, Adian. And Casey says he's probably sleeping. He's always sleeping. I think because his mind is only half awake. And the mom's like, people who say such things about their brothers often go to bed without supper. So she's like, don't talk shit about your brother. And that's where we get into they're sitting at the table eating, and the little girl's like, you don't look like a princess. You're too tall. And her mom's like, Casey. She's like, it's true. Princesses are supposed to be petite in all the books. I don't even know what petite means, but I don't think that's her. Which, jeez, okay.
Wow.
Called you too tall and not fit or thin or whatever all in one go.
Well, no, but it's like you get like a little bit more in, and Serene's just like, no, I'm from TO. We're all this tall, and the boy's like, but Father's from TO too, and look how tall he is. And the girl's like, yeah, but Father's fat. Why aren't you fat, Sarene?
Yeah. If you're gonna be tall, you gotta be fat. Come on, everybody knows that. The taller you are, the fatter you gotta be.
You just can't be a lanky princess, clearly.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And then the dad's just like, yeah, okay. He knocks on her head. Is like, yep, completely hollow. That explains a lot. And she's like, I still think princesses should be smaller. Besides, they're supposed to have good table manners, and she's dropped like half her food on the floor. Who ever heard of a princess that didn't know how to use Maypon sticks?
Everybody ever? Nobody knows how to use those except for you and the people from Maypon. Jerk.
Well, apparently, the Maypon sticks, which are kind of like chopsticks, except one of the sticks has like a little scoop on it. I think it describes it like. They are originally from Maypon, but the Jindo use them, which is, I guess, why we're using them with Jindo food.
Mm-hmm. I think this is actual utensils that some culture uses that are like that.
Interesting. I wouldn't surprise me. I've never seen one, but I've always thought about chopsticks. It would be real nice if one of these had a little scoopy thing on it.
Yeah. Scoop it with one, steady it with the other.
And then we get a look at the last child, Adian, who is pale and eats awkwardly with stiff and uncontrolled motions, and he mumbles to himself, talking about numbers. And Sarene thinks that she's met people like him before, children whose minds weren't completely whole.
He's Rain Man.
And Keen mentions that he learned this dish last year while Luke was studying in Sforden, and Aiden pops in and says 2,162,238. That's how many steps it is to Sforden. Which everyone's like, okay, whatever. No one actually pays any attention to that, but if he's right, that's a hell of a thing.
That's nice.
It is very Rain Man-y.
One day it's
Slime
going to
Rain
come
Man?
up as a trivia question, and they're all going to be like, if only we had the one guy who knows this.
Yeah.
Jadeth sponsored trivia nights.
Big Jordan's like, what is the true form of Shu Kareth?
Brandon has publicly said that about this character that he was kind of, going for an autistic sort of person, but he feels in hindsight, after having spoken with several people who are actually on the spectrum, that he really did a very stereotypical take on it here, and he feels bad about not doing a more realistic and researching that more before writing a character like that. So there's a fun fact. We get it. She's like, man, you cook really well, Uncle Keen. And he's like, I would have cooked back when I was, visiting Teod, but the palace head cook felt that royalty didn't belong in the kitchen and would not let me set foot in there to prepare a meal. And then she's surprised that they don't have a cook who works for them. And we get into a discussion about what happened 10 years ago, the Raoden, the punishment, after the Elantrians fell in this sudden event, this disaster or whatever. You can't know the horror that comes from seeing gods turn wretched and foul. Their fall destroyed the government, throwing the country into chaos. But it was the servants that started the revolution. The very day their masters fell, the servants turned on them. Mostly the current nobility say that it was because the lower class in Elantris was treated too well, and their pampered natures inspired them to cast down their former rulers at the first sign of weakness. Well, that's nice. Okay.
I don't think so. The revolution has begun.
You've treated me so nicely. I'm gonna kill you.
But yeah, so basically the servants started this revolution, and a lot of people suffered a lot. The entire country was thrown into upheaval overnight. And so it's like, ever since then, we cannot convince ourselves to hire servants. It's like, we don't want to be the next up against the wall when the revolution comes again. And she's like, it's fine. You'd be surprised how much you can get done without needing servants, especially when you have a couple children to do the dirty jobs. And Luke was like, that's all we're good for, scrubbing floors. And Keen's like, it's the only reason I ever found for having kids. It's fun because it's true. Oh, wait, no, that's mean. No, it's in all honesty, having two kids this age, it is a lot easier to clean than to get them to clean. Like, I have to spend an hour getting him to clean what would take me 15 minutes to clean myself. So sometimes it's not worth the trouble.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. And so Casey declares herself a princess, and Keen's like, oh, so you're a princess now. She's like, well, if Sarene can be one, then I can too. After all, you're her uncle, so that should make you a prince, right? It's like, technically, I don't think I have an official title anymore. That's probably because they kicked you out because you spoke of chamber pots during supper. Princess can't do that sort of thing.
Just imagining him on the boat, flipping the bird at his brother as the boat drives away. It's like, fuck you, asshole. and his brother's just like, well, guess what? You're not a prince anymore, dickhead. Just for that.
That's harsh.
Yeah, Teod politics, man.
Right. Yeah, who knows what goes on there,
around.
right?
Yeah,
They flip each other
fun.
off all the time, I'm sure, in Teod.
Oh yeah, that's what I do.
Is the highest form of insult over there.
But she's like, so you're a prince, Dad. That makes me a princess. And her brother's like, actually, he's not the king. His kids would be like barons or counts or something. And she's very disappointed. I feel like if I'm having dinner with this person, I find out that my dad's a prince, and that would make me a baron or a count, I'd be like, okay, that's pretty cool, actually.
Both of those titles just sound so much cooler than prince or princess. And it's like, yeah, I'm a baron or I'm a count. It's like,
right?
Sounds like, yeah, like I've got a big spooky castle and I got hounds.
Got the Hound of the Baskervilles going on. I like it.
Yep.
For Christmas one year, I randomly found online and was like, okay, we're doing this. I got my wife. She is now a baroness of Sealand because you can buy noble appointments in that country. Well, country,
Oh, yeah.
quote, air quotes.
Right.
So fun times. Yeah. So, I'm practically royalty. Clearly.
Sealand.
I think you need to buy yourself a baronship before you say that.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of money. I don't know.
You just,
Star
yeah,
Wars
it's
Birthday is
like,
coming up.
she's the Baroness. You just married into it.
That's true. Still good for me. And he's like, yeah, I don't think I officially have a title anymore. And Serene's thinking about that. Like, I've never heard of a prince being stripped of his title, and I know Teod's history pretty well. This might be something I need to look into.
Well, I mean, it says kind of a lot that, she's being shipped over here to marry a guy in this country, and her dad never thinks to bring up, oh, yeah, your uncle is actually also a nobleman over there now. He married some girl. So it's like maybe the father doesn't know, or maybe he does and just doesn't want to talk about it. But it says a lot that like that's never come up.
Yep.
So whatever the hell's gone down between Dad and Keen, messed up.
Oh yeah, and we saw how like kindly her dad seems and how open he is with talking to her. So it really does say something about it, that it's like, okay, but this is something this guy didn't want to talk about.
Yeah.
And then Ace shows up. Ash, whatever, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, a Seon! This is awesome!" It's like, "Oh, yeah, he's been serving my house for over 2 centuries." So here's the question answered that we were asking last time. It's like, did something happen to them when their person dies or what? And it turns out that her mother passed her Ash when she was born. One of the finest gifts a person can receive.
But I guess that's like that was the choice was made to pass Ash on. But what happens if you die while you have a Seon?
Right.
Like, does it just pass on to the next person, or do you have to sort of proactively pass it on, or what? Because that could form part of. I mean, she knows that Raoden has a Seon, so how would that she might just think about that a little bit, but it doesn't really clear up what happens when you die.
It's a good point, because if normally if you die and your Seon is just fine and goes on to someone else on their own, then it's like, well, wait, what happened to his Seon? Could help her suspicions. Yeah.
Well,
you're punished and cursed and sent to Elantris, and so is your Seon.
Didn't they see one?
Yeah.
They saw one in Elantris. Yeah, we know that if you go to Elantris, your Seon goes crazy, but she doesn't know she doesn't know that he's in Elantris. So if him dying normally would have meant a certain thing for his Seon, and that doesn't happen, then that goes along with her suspicions that something weird is going on.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe unexpected deaths, like if they don't pass on their Seon, then it doesn't go to another person. It just disappears.
That would be hard to prove then. That something weird was, unless I guess crazy Ian wanders out and gets seen. It's like, hey, isn't that Raoden Seon? Why is he so crazy now?
Yeah.
Well, it's just like,
could you tell from afar though? Yeah.
You probably can't tell from far away. You'd probably have to see the Aeon at the center.
Yeah. It's like this is my specific Seon because he's this shade of yellow.
Right.
That
looks like
Big
Dinklebot, not Nathan Drakebot.
And like Casey's like, a Seon, can I play with him after supper? And Ash is like, wait, play with me? What? And she's like, can I please? And Serene's like, I don't know. I seem to recall some comments about my height. And
mic drop.
Everyone laughs, and that's the end of Serene's chapter. I like that she got such a positive ending to that chapter. It was really nice for her.
Yeah.
You are a part of this family because you have the sass.
And we cut to Hrathen, who's like, yep, there's no hope for that king. I hope to save him, but, I kind of figured that we'd have to overthrow some stuff here.
Yeah, he's really Willy Wonka-ing it here. He's like, no, stop. Please convert. All right.
And I like the note that he's like, if we just gotten here 10 years ago, right after the Riad, then we could have taken over while the country was in chaos. But we didn't know at the time, nobody knew if there was some sort of disease that would spread, so we stayed away. And like Dilloff is just like, no, Jadeath struck down the Elantrians. It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, sure, Jadeath, right. But, he uses normal stuff sometimes so he could have used a plague to strike down the Elantrians, and it could have killed us as easily. It's like, no, Jadeath would protect his chosen. Yeah, okay, whatever, dude. Basically, Dilloff is very fervent in his belief. Maybe not that realistic, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of zealots, Dilloff over here is giving Hrathen a run for his money. It's like, I'm a zealot to the point of not believing anything is not from Jadeath.
But Hrathen starts thinking back. We know that Duladel fell not that long ago, and he says memories of the Duladel revolution were still stark in Hrathen's mind. The death, blood, and chaos. Such a cataclysm had to be avoided because he doesn't love carnage. So he's like, I got to make sure that doesn't happen again. But at the same time, Jadeath got a Jadeath. The Empire is going to expand, and we can't wait around for these people.
You can't make an omelet without pillaging a few villages. Wait,
Yeah.
what?
Well, it depends on if you have any eggs or not, and clearly the villagers do. So, and then he's like, I saw something weird in there. Did you see that girl? She was really tall and looked really out of place. And Dilloff's like, oh, well, what was she wearing? And he's like, all black with a yellow sash. So she put on a yellow sash. I feel like she just wants to piss off her new mom now.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh no, yeah, that's the new princess. And the royal engagement contract made her his wife as soon as he died. And it's like, oh, okay, where's she from? Teod. Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's like, I was thinking about, courting her, but Teod, nah, I'm not interested.
Not my thing.
And here's where it says Teod is the homeland of Shu Korath, a degenerate sect of Shu Keseg, the parent religion of Shu Dereth. The day Teod falls beneath Fjordan's glory would be a joyous day indeed. Hrathen's like, man. Sorry, go ahead.
You sound like Rick Moranis from Ghostbusters. It's like it's like many whatever knew what
many
it was
shrubs and Zools knew what it was
to be digested in the belly of a Torg that day, I could tell you.
It's a weird line because he says many shrubs and Zools, and Zool is a different character that we know. So it's like,
yeah,
is Zool like
Zools
a member of
get
a species
digested
of Zools? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm Zool, the Zoolian.
I'll just wait till we get to the review today. There's a fun reference that goes right along with that.
There is no Dana, only Zool.
But Hrathen's like, Teo Princess, that could be a problem. And Dilloff is, no, nothing can hinder Jadeith's empire. Like, if nothing could hinder us, we would already be in charge of everything. So, dial it back.
It's like, look, I appreciate
going, I
the
immediately
fervor.
regret my decisions.
Yeah. I appreciate your zealousness, but, use your brain.
Just think about this for a minute.
How long have you got left on probation?
That's a demerit.
And so Dilloff's like, well, how could one woman be a problem? He's like, well, for one thing, this means that Teod and Arelon are now bonded. So if we're not careful, we'll end up fighting two countries at once, which better to avoid if possible. But, pay attention, Artith, and I will teach you a very important lesson, one that few people know. I will show you the way to destroy a nation. The means by which the man of Jadeath can topple kingdoms and seize control of the people's souls. And he's like, take me up to the walls of Elantris. I wish to view the fallen lords of Arelon.
Man, so dramatic.
Right? He's a very dramatic dude, and I love it, actually.
Take me to the wall. I wish to piss off the side.
So, on the outside of Elantris' walls, there are beautiful terraced steps leading up to the top. So basically, this is not a defensible position inside the city. You actually give an enemy coming in an easy staircase up to the top to kill you from. So that's the way he thinks about it. He's looking at this as a military sort of thing.
Interesting that these haven't decayed as well. It's like only on the inside of the walls is shit gone to hell.
Right? Maybe that says something.
The rot comes from within. Because there's no slime on the outside of the wall either.
No, not that we've heard about.
Because, he didn't know about the slime until he got there. He's like, look, what's all this slime?
Yep.
It's like, well, what's the lesson here? The rock comes within, or man, these are some good fucking walls.
Primo wall.
But we do learn an important fact that it doesn't seem like Erelon has a military. They have the Elantrian guards, but he says that's more of a public relations operation than an actual military. And if there was actually a fight, the guards probably couldn't do much.
Yeah, the way he sells it, it's like, how haven't they been conquered yet?
Right? It says only superstition and inaccessibility kept Elantris and Kay from being taken by invaders. Let's see.
Yeah, man, people are scared.
Well, and there's a big mountain range in between Erelon and the main Fjorden Empire. Well, there was until they took Duladel. Now the whole south is kind of open to Duladel, but before now, the mountains have kept them back to some degree, apparently.
Fjordals are many things. Mountain climbers, not one of them.
But he also says that there's bandits and thieving bands around, but the larger ones are either under Fjordal control, which means they have not attacked because they haven't been ordered to, or they were bribed away by Kay's nobles. Both situations were temporary. So Erelon is in a very precarious situation right now. And he's like, if we don't conquer it soon, it's going to collapse on its own because it got so many stupid problems, including inept leadership, an overtaxed working class, dwindling resources, and so on. And Dilloth, in addition to just being really into his religion, really hates Elantrians, especially. And they're standing up there. He's like, I hate them.
Again, Hrathen's like, all right, calm down. let's pull it back. Hate, yeah, sure. But we can use them. I hate them. It's like he's like Anakin Skywalker at the end of talking to Obi-Wan. He's just like, I hate you.
From my perspective, the Jedi are evil.
Yeah, it's like, you did this to yourself, bro. He said, don't jump over me. I'm going to cut your legs and arm off. And he's like, I don't care.
But he had the high ground.
Exactly. That's what Anakin failed to recognize.
Hrathen spots the buildings decaying and then sees some of the Elantrians. Just when he's thinking that nothing could live in the city, he sees some of the Elantrians going past, and he thinks not of them as people, but it's like it was bald. And initially, Hrathen thought its skin was dark, like a member of the Jindo noble caste. He couldn't make out the Elantrians' eyes, but somehow Hrathen knew they would be wild and feral, darting around like those of an anxious animal. So he's thinking, man, Jadeath just took what was in their hearts and showed it to the world, showed everyone how horrible these people really were. They set themselves up as gods, and their hubris earned them their fate. He's like, the first step to taking control of a nation, Arteth, is the simplest. You find someone to hate. So he's like, I want to know everything about the Elantrians. And Dilloth is just like, they're foul, loathsome creatures. Thinking of them makes my heart grow sick and my mind feel tainted. It's like, okay, look, I get that you...
You said Hrathen was dramatic?
Yeah, okay, that's a fair point. Dilloth is just like...
the more zealous you are, the more dramatic you are.
Dilloth is like drama personified. He can't say anything without it being over the top. And Hrathen's like, okay, look, I get that you have strong feelings here, but you need to actually give me information that's useful.
Let's put your feelings aside for just a moment. I promise. We'll get back to them. But we got a job to do.
And so, remember, Dilloth is from Erelon, so he was like, "Were you ever here before Elantris fell? Did you see the city?" He's like, "Yeah." Was it as beautiful as people say? Pristine, kept white by the hands of slaves. All of Erelon were slaves to the Elantrians, the false gods. Oh, jeez, okay. He's like, what about their magic? Did they really have magic? Nope, that was lies. A carefully crafted hoax. So, after the Raoden, everything was in chaos, and apparently the merchants seized power. I don't know if we knew that before, but the merchants were the ones that took over.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think they mentioned it before that Iodon's merchant. Yeah.
And most of the Elantrians were killed in the riots. But there were a few left. Confined to Elantris, and so were all men taken by the shout from that day forward. And he's like, oh, so the transformations still go on? And he's like, yep, all across Erelon. Why do you hate them so much? Because they're unholy. But really, it seems because they lied to us. They made promises of eternity, but couldn't even maintain their own divinity. He's like, I hate them because they disappointed my people. Not me personally. I was already a follower of Shudrath, so.
He's like, we need a better reason for other people to hate them than disappointment. That's not gonna work.
And so he's sitting here like, so you're saying that there's no magic involved here, right? He was like, well, yeah, clearly not. It's all fake. Like, so how do you explain people suddenly turning into Elantrians? That seems kind of magical. And Dilaf does not have an answer to that. And so he's like, there are other magics in the world besides Jadeath. And Dilaf's like, wait, no, he's like, no, not blasphemy. There's like one acknowledged source of supernatural power. It's like, oh, the Fracus. Oh, geez, these words. God, my brain.
Fracus.
Just everything. A fracker. Like, it's the Fracus. Fraggle Rock, I don't know.
Yeah, so the Fraggles, yeah, okay.
I think the first time I tried to say it, I wound up saying Suvlaki.
Suvlaki, yeah, okay.
Suvlaki.
That's harder the food is harder to make sound like a bad guy than
Dovahkiin.
The Fraggles are souls of dead men who hated Jada.
Fraggles.
And so these souls, I guess, have a power after death because of their hatred of Jadeath. I don't know. It is an accepted doctrine that they can control the bodies of the evil. So I was like, oh. So, and then Dilaf's like, wait a second, you don't really believe this, do you? He's like, well, it doesn't matter. The connection is logical. People will follow it. So right now what we have is these people who people don't hate them. They pity them because of how, like, horrible their situation is. Demons, however, everyone can hate. So if we make people think the Elantrians are demons, that gives us an in, and people will want to follow us. And Dilaf's like, yeah, okay, good. That means we get to destroy them, right? I was like, yeah, eventually. First we use them. Later we'll talk about destruction. You will find that hate can unify people more quickly and more fervently than devotion ever could. So this guy's very practical. He's like, look, we want to convert these people. Devotion would be good. We'll settle for hate. Whatever gets us there. And that is the end of our chapter triad. Just speaking of, for next time, we're going to do another 3 chapters, 7, 8, and 9. So another triad of perspectives. In the meantime, let us do predigments. What do you guys think? Now that we've got a little more information, we're still meeting new people, learning new details, like Jamie, and I think practically everyone said in the intro. We're still very much in the setup phase of this book. But what do you guys think is on the way?
So my biggest prediction for this go around is I actually think Karada is Raoden's mother. I think because we don't know what happened to her. We just know that the woman in K is not his real mother. But we've already seen that it's Iadon's style to be like, oh no, my son died. He didn't go to Elantris. So it would make a lot of sense for him to have done the same thing if his wife had become an Elantrian, to basically fake her death, say that she died, and then she became an Elantrian. That being said, I think that's an explanation as to why she keeps trying to go to the palace, not to see Iadon. Although maybe she does want to kill him. But my theory, right? Exactly. My theory was she was actually traveling to the palace to see Raoden, and so that's probably the biggest thing I got out of this. My other theories are that, like I mentioned before, they're going to be able to use magic to like make themselves live longer, or they're going to find some way to basically use it. Because even though they're cursed and they're undead, they still have the ability to use the magic that the Elantrians used. So that will obviously change things quite a bit, especially for Raoden. And maybe they'll be able to use their magical abilities to form some kind of plan of escape, or a way to connect the people of Elantris, the undead, to be able to come together. As far as Sarene, I think she's our sleuth. I think she's like the sleuth of the piece. She's going to try to she's going to start piecing things together. I think there's some kind of underground organization going on with Keen and Lukul, and I think she's going to end up being a part of that as well. It may be something to overthrow Aiden. It may be something just to promote the people of Erelon or to protect the people of Erelon. So I think she's going to get involved in that. And then I think the Gjorn's plans are going to kind of be what brings the main conflict in the story. Besides the Elantrian conflict, it's just going to kind of bring things to a head in the city, and it's going to cause some chaos. So that's what I'm thinking after reading these chapters.
Okay, that makes sense. I really like your thoughts about Karada, or even just somebody. If Iadon's really behind this whole thing, then this is probably not the first time he's done it, right? So
yeah.
I love the whole Karada is his mum idea that you've had, so I'm going to stick with that in my head. The only theory I've really got is like Raoden mentions his little underground club, which apparently now Lukul and the rest are in, and the fact that Lukul was like, his wife is Svordish and they met at the Svordish University, I think it was, makes me think, all right, so maybe these guys are like they are actually trying to, like, they've got a handle on the Fjordell religion, and they're trying to sort of subvert things in Arelon to be more amenable to the Fjordell Empire without actually needing Hrathen's sort of style of input. I feel like they're going to try and be the middle ground between Iadon's foolishness and Hrathen's just genocide that he's going to bring. I feel like that's probably what they were aiming for. And then now Raoden's been tossed into Elantris. He's going to try and find some way to bring that all into it as well. But yeah, all his priorities have been thrown out the window. But I feel like his underground group, that's what they were going for. Yeah, just had a guess.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we really don't know anything about what they're going for at this point, so that's as good a guess as any.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's an interesting thought. I almost thought the opposite, because, I mean, essentially you might, realizing now that Raoden's best friend was Lukul and that he was close with Keen, you might have, my thinking is more along the lines of they wanted to help build the alliance between Teod and Kay and Erelon so that they could fight against the Fjordell Empire, especially if his wife is Svordish. It sounds like they were taken over by Fjordell and that they're actually being oppressed. That's kind of where my brain was going on that one.
Okay. Yeah. Like, I mean, that makes sense. I feel like rather like they was doing something that's just like to protect from the Fjordell Empire without antagonizing them, maybe. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good point that Raoden, whatever he was planning, clearly he was on board with the idea of marrying the girl and making the alliance with Teod. So, yeah, that would have to maybe not necessarily factor into their plans. It wouldn't have to, but it would have to not be something that was directly opposed to their plans, because it's like, why are you doing that then? So that's an interesting point.
Okay, mine are, I guess, a little bit more short-term predigments. I'm sort of thinking that, so Raoden, where he's holed down now, he's got all these books and drawings and magic and stuff to learn about. So I think he's going to probably dive into a lot of that sooner rather than later to learn about that a bit more. I think that we'll probably see that Seon again, whether it turns out to be Ian or not. Maybe he will find his own Seon in there. Not really sure yet. Given they made such a big deal about how Karata doesn't really have other people into her gang, and she wants out and she wants the palace, I think that's going to definitely raise the curiosity for Raoden. I love the idea of maybe she being his mother. That was really cool when you said that. I think that he will meet up with her possibly before she makes her next escape attempt. Maybe he will end up with her gang or something, I don't know, but there'll be some reason that they want to meet together. If she's been trying to get into the palace, regardless of the reason, having someone from the palace there would be quite appealing to her, I think. So I think they will meet up fairly soon. Just what we were talking about a little bit earlier about the Seons as well. I think what happens to a Seon when you die is going to be really important to Sarene to figure out what happened to her husband. Yeah, it's got to factor in somehow. I think these little guys are too important to sort of just sweep under the rug. That's got to have some importance there. And we haven't really met the gang leader, I can't remember his name, the one who said he was a baron, lives in the university.
Oh, yeah.
Starts with
Andon. I
Andon,
think
yeah. I just see the double A and I'm like, Ron, that guy. That's what I hear. So when Ron, when we meet him, maybe Hrathen will want to team up with him if he's talking about getting out and attacking KO. Sorry, maybe that would be like a strong alliance there. So we might see Hrathen do a little bit more research into the gangs from the wall as well, and sort of team up certain alliances. And yeah, I feel like everything we've been given, it's a lot of information, but I feel like there's so much in there that's really important, and especially because it's a short time to tell a story. We all know how Brandon likes to end his books. They're pretty intense pretty quickly, and there's a lot of juicy bits of information along the way. So I feel like, while yes, it feels like a lot of setup in these chapters as well, and we're still being introduced to a lot of this, I think a lot of what we've read this week is going to be really important, and it's going to come into play probably across the rest of the book, not just in the immediate future. But yeah, I don't really have any long-term predictions at this point of how it's all going to go. I think it's a bit early for that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But yes, I think you're probably right on that. He's not wasting our time with a lot of this information we're getting here.
No, not at all.
Okay, then. Let us get into. We have one review and one email, and let's do the email first. So I put some images that were sent into the chat that we had. So if you guys want to look at those, but this email is from Jacob, and Jacob says, "Hi, JD, and D. I'm also JD. I've been a big fan of the show since I picked it up a couple months ago. My job has long spans of nothingness, so your podcasts are a really nice distraction. I got to the part where Ellen and Vin are going to crash the first ball in Fadrax, and that reminded me that I'd drawn a comic of Ham and Set sending them off, and I thought I might send it, along with some other things, to you guys, since Data mentioned he didn't want to rip off other people's work when talking to them about it. So I sent some 3 images that Jacob sent, and they're pretty.
Why is
they're
Set
pretty
so
fun.
tiny?
Well,
Or
you
is that
know.
like supposed to be a perspective thing?
No, I think he's just tiny.
He's just like sitting on Ham's shoulder like he's a little tiny creature.
When you said that picture, I legit thought it's kind of like Aladdin and Abu sort of thing. Set is Ham's Abu.
Yeah.
I don't think Set would like that. No.
No.
But Jacob also sent what are these other 2 images? There's a
Damu
Damu
and the
image,
Survivor.
which Damu
He
looks
like
pretty
the guy
badass.
from Doom.
And then the Survivor. I think the Survivor one's my favorite, with like this,
Yeah, I think so.
the arm reaching out of the darkness.
That's that's really cool. I like that one.
So just thank you for the art, Jacob. I'm gonna put that on Instagram too at some point to show the cool stuff that people sent in. I can't wait for you guys to enter Mistborn Era 2 and experience all of its epic moments. Keep on your trek through the Cosmere, knowing that I and many others are right alongside you. Thanks for so much great content. Wasing to the time of next.
Thanks, man.
And then the email ends with PS to future me. Dude, do that thing you aren't doing. It's been 2 weeks. Oh, yeah, because we talk about how, like, yeah, if you're going to remember when you send an email in. So he used us as a message to himself 2 weeks in the future. I like it.
Hello
cool.
from the world of tomorrow.
Shut up, Terry.
It's like, stop it, Terry. And then we have one review from Vigo the World Hopper via Apple Podcasts Norway.
Oh, Vigo, awesome name.
Norway,
Yeah.
Hey.
It's funny because clearly we got the Ghostbusters reference when we were just making Ghostbusters references earlier. But also, I have a cat named Vigo the Carpathian, so technically that one is my wife's cat.
He's very unlike Vigo the Carpathian, though. He's like super affectionate and nice.
Yep, it's true.
Is he big? Vigo was a pretty big dude.
No,
he's
actually,
probably
I
the
think
smallest cat.
He's the smallest of our cats. So crazy Vigo. Anyway, what Vigo the World Hopper says is great. If you want a great podcast with great content, great people, and great discussions, this is the podcast for you. With their excellent predictions, they must have both connection and fortune, 2 capitalized words. So thank you, Vigo.
Yeah,
cool name.
Vigo. You were very succinct. You're a coin shot.
Are coin shots succinct? Is that a quality of them?
Well, just like coins fly very, very precision-like in most cases.
It is now.
Yeah, it was now.
I associate succinctness with preciseness.
Okay. Makes sense to me. Okay. So that is our reviews and emails for the week. If you would like to send us an email, the email address is thesanderlanche@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all of those various kinds of places. I put up this week one of those images that the person had sent us previously as our Instagram. I'm sure you guys saw. So we'll do that maybe with this next set that we just got to. Fun stuff. Like I said, for next time, we're doing 3 more chapters. So it'll be 7, 8, and 9 for those of you following along out there. And that will actually be the last 3 chapters for a while. We can move into 2-chapter territory for a bit. So things are going to get denser, I think. Music by Miracle of Sound.
There you go.
I'm going to get it. I got it. And
it's not by me this time.
No. Not unless something goes horribly awry between now and the time it comes out. And wuzzing to the time of next. Colo?
My name's Get up, get out in the city of dreams. Get up, get out.